Hello everyone. It's a storm we must survive, a test of how deeply we're willing to fight. My heart has ached more times than I can count, yet it still beats for love, for hope, for him. On the day CEO Toan stood before his own mother, defying her judgment and fear to protect me, I knew love was real. It was raw, painful, brave, and it chose me.
The morning was quiet, but his heart was not. Every step he took echoed with the weight of a decision he could no longer avoid. He had returned from the forest not only with bruises on his body, but with clarity in his soul. The woman who saved his life, fragile, brave, forgotten by the world, had become the most precious thing he had. And now, she was once again being threatened, not by fate, but by blood. She stood silently behind him, her hands shaking, her eyes lowered. She didn't ask to stay. She never dared to. But he had asked her to because for the first time, he understood what it meant to fight for someone, not as a CEO, but as a man. The living room was filled with tension as the voice of his mother sliced through the air like a blade. Cold, sharp, final. "She's not one of us," she said. "She brings shame. She ran from her past. Do you even know who she really is?" But he did. He knew better than anyone. He had seen her starving, yet still offering him the last piece of food. He had seen her shaking with fever, but refusing to let go of his hand. He had seen her choosing silence over self-pity, dignity over revenge. She was not perfect, but she was real, and that was enough. With pain in his chest, he looked at the woman who gave him life and said the words he never imagined he would have to say. "If you ask me to choose between blood and love, I choose love." The silence that followed was deafening. A son standing against his mother. A CEO refusing the expectations of wealth and tradition. A man breaking the very walls that had once protected him, now turned prison. Tears welled in Diem's eyes, but she didn't cry out. She simply watched him. Because for the first time, someone was fighting for her. Later that night, he sat beside her in the small guest room. She was offered. He reached for her hand. "I don't know what comes next," he said softly, "but I won't let anyone take you from me, not again." She didn't answer with words. She leaned on his shoulder, where the aching slowed, and the beating, though broken, remained strong. The next few days passed in a strange stillness, like the air before a storm. Though the confrontation with his mother had ended, the wounds it left behind did not fade easily. The house that once echoed with formality and distant politeness now held something more. Fragile tension, yes, but also truth. She stayed. Diem didn't ask for more than a corner to rest in. She still walked lightly, as if afraid her footsteps might offend. But the way she watered the plants in the early morning, or quietly folded the blanket left on the couch, reminded Toan of something he had long forgotten: gentleness in its purest form. Yet the world outside didn't rest. At work, Toan's enemies began to sense distraction in his eyes. Rumors whispered through boardrooms like smoke. Why was the CEO bringing a strange girl into his home? Was she a threat? A scandal? Or worse, was she controlling him? He ignored them all. He had chosen his path, but not everyone was willing to let things go. One evening, his mother called him into her room, her tone softer, but her eyes still firm. "I raised you to be strong," she began, "to never let your heart lead your life. But now look at you risking everything for a girl with no name, no family, no future." He stood quietly, then answered with a calm she didn't expect. "She gave me back my life. When I was lying in the forest, bleeding and forgotten, she stayed. She fed me, cared for me. When I remembered who I was, she didn't ask for money. She only ran because she didn't want to cause trouble. If that is weakness, then maybe I was wrong about what strength really means." His mother turned away, struggling with emotions she had buried for decades. She had lost a husband young, raised a son alone, built walls so tall that even love couldn't climb over them. And yet now, in that silence, even she began to wonder, had she forgotten what love was supposed to feel like? Downstairs, Diem sat alone on the porch, watching the night fall. A soft breeze played with the hem of her worn dress. She didn't know if she belonged here. She didn't know if she ever would. But when she heard his footsteps behind her steady, familiar, her heart steadied. He sat beside her, saying nothing at first. Then, "I don't care what the world says. I'm not asking them for permission. I'm just asking you, will you stay?" She turned to him, her voice a whisper. "I'm scared, so am I," he replied. "But we'll be scared together." And in that moment, as stars quietly lit the sky, they chose each other again. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, but because love, even when aching, still beats. The days that followed were quiet, but beneath the quiet, a storm was gathering. At the company, whispers turned into questions. Partners grew cautious. Toan's decision to publicly protect a girl with an unknown past was not just a personal choice, it was beginning to look like a professional risk. His board of directors requested a private meeting. Inside the cold, glass-paneled room, men in suits spoke in careful tones. Some were polite, others less so. "She is affecting your judgment," one said. "This could harm our international image." Another added. Toan listened, not because he agreed, but because he knew what was at stake. He stood, gaze steady. "I understand your concerns," he said. "But this company was built not just with numbers, but with values. If standing by the woman who saved my life makes you question my leadership, then perhaps you never trusted it to begin with." The room went silent. He walked out without waiting for applause because he wasn't playing a role anymore. He was finally being himself. But outside the boardroom, trouble brewed. A man had been watching from the shadows, one who had everything to lose if Toan remained CEO. A rival with a long-held grudge, and now, a perfect weapon, Diem. That night, a letter arrived at the house. No name, no return address. Just one line scrawled in rough ink. "You don't know the whole truth about the girl you're protecting." Toan read it in silence. His heart thudded not in doubt, but in dread. Who was trying to destroy what little piece they had just begun to build? He didn't tell Diem. Not yet, but the next day, he asked someone he trusted most, his childhood friend, now a private investigator, to look into it. "I don't care what it costs," he said. "Find out who sent the letter, and if there's anything about her past I don't know. I want to hear it from you, not from the enemies waiting to use it." Meanwhile, Diem felt something shift. She could sense it in the way Toan watched her when he thought she wasn't looking. A flicker of worry behind his kind eyes. A silence that felt heavier than before. And then, the nightmares returned. She dreamed of the old house, the shouting, the pain. The hands that once dragged her down and tried to sell her like an object. She woke up gasping, shaking, but this time she wasn't alone. Toan rushed to her side, held her without questions. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I'm here." She clung to him like a lifeline, but in her heart, a truth still haunted her. She hadn't told him everything, and soon she would have to. In a world driven by power, status, and appearances, true love often arrives in silence, uninvited, unexpected, and inconvenient. But it is precisely in that inconvenience that its value is revealed. Tu Diem was not the woman society expected a CEO to love. She came from pain, poverty, and abandonment. She carried scars, some visible, others buried deep in memory. Yet she also carried something far rarer: resilience. She had every reason to give up, to hate, to harden her heart. But she didn't. She chose to live, to love, to protect even when the world had shown her no kindness. Toan had everything a man could ask for: wealth, success, influence. But he lacked peace, and in Diem, he found what no fortune could buy: truth, vulnerability, and a reason to become more than a title. Their love was not easy. It was questioned, criticized, threatened. He had to stand against the very people who raised him, face the secrets buried in his own family, and risk his empire for a woman many thought unworthy. But that is the essence of love: to see worth where others see shame, to protect when it is hardest, and to believe when the world turns its back. This story teaches us that love is not blind; it sees everything, but still chooses to stay. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who have suffered in silence. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. True success is not in how high we rise, but in how deeply we love. To those who have been broken, you are not unworthy, you are unbreakable. To those afraid to love someone with a complicated past, love is not a transaction. It is a transformation. And to those standing at the edge between comfort and courage, may you choose the path that leads to a beating heart, even if it aches. Because some hearts ache not from weakness, but from loving deeply in a world that often forgets what love truly means.